of the things that kind of came up, during discussions for the video with the recordings was a matter of DS9, and she brought up that Gene Roddenberry was actually fairly involved in the early development of it, because he started working on it before he died, so he was consulted on. Now, varying opinions have come out about what he really, the old thing of would Gene have approved of Deep Space Nine. I have, again, the 50-year mission, second volume. Now, Marina Sirtis, her feeling was that if Gene was alive, DS9 would never have been made, because he absolutely said no to it when it was presented to him, and he said the Star Trek is about exploring space, not about hotel space. Roddenberry, he's a little iffy on how much it really viewed to the vision of Star Trek. Actually, I'm of the opinion it viewed better to original Star Trek than Next Gen did, because frankly, Gene kind of forgot a few things that he knew back during the original series about how how you present people in the show. They really have to be relatable, and the Next Gen folks, what he was doing, it was not really relatable. So it's kind of hard to address issues. We got people he can't relate to. He knew that in the original series. He forgot it in Next Gen. So, in my opinion, Deep Space Nine is a true successor to the original series in that respect. But, and Susan Sackett that said that Gene had not approved Deep Space Nine. He hated it and he did not want them doing it. And a week after he died, they took it and ran with it and said, and that's something she's not happy with, because Gene's gone, now we do DS9. Okay. A lot of these quotes in here from various interviews and talks and everything, this is something Rick Berman said for this book here. This is brand new content here regarding getting Gene's approval, or at least informed, letting them know what was happening. And mind you, this is very early. I think they maybe had a name and an idea. Deep Space Nine, there's a space station will have a father and son, be like Brandon Tartakov's pitch line of a rifleman in space, which is a nice little play on the wagon train to the stars thing. So here you go, Rick Berman. Gene was very ill. Most of the encounters I had with him were at his home in Bel Air. I specifically remember going to sit with him and Michael Piller in his kitchen, and basically telling Gene that the studio had asked us to develop a new show and that we were working on it. I can't say that he was excited about it, nor was he in any way upset about it. He just kind of nodded and said it was really interesting and he'd love to know more. It was discussed vaguely with Gene, who never seemed extremely enthusiastic nor in any way problematic with it. This was at the very early stage, and he really wasn't interested. He wasn't interested. I think maybe it wasn't a question of disinterest. I think it was more a question that he was not very well at that point. He knew the end was near, pretty much. So he's not going to be around to see this program, so why bother? Michael Piller and I were both very close to Gene, and Gene learned quite early in the Next Generation process that we could be trusted with Star Trek. When we developed the series, every step of the way we had Gene sitting on our shoulders, and many things were rejected because, quote, Gene wouldn't buy that. I very much believe that Gene would be very pleased with the way the show went. And to kind of borrow a turn of phrase from David Gerrold, the Gene Roddenberry of 1967 would definitely have liked Deep Space Nine, because he wanted to explore kinds of war and religion. The Gene Roddenberry of 89 and 90, maybe. Again, he forgot a lot of what he knew back in 67 about television and storytelling. But there you go. And I do intend to press Bijo a little bit. And what did Gene tell her about this Deep Space Nine show coming up? Because one thing we know about Roddenberry is he would tell various people different things based on what he figured they wanted to hear. And that much is a typical TV producer. He would bend the story to whatever he figured needed to be told to get through the day. In fact, it kind of relates also to the animated series and its status as canon or non-canon. Might as well go into it now. Basically, remember, back at the time the Next Generation was being developed, Filmation Studios, who was the actual producers of the animated series, was shutting down and starting to divest itself of all its licensed properties. Because mostly what it was, licensed. Lone Ranger, Tarzan, and all the DC heroes, and Star Trek. And there was a very big question of who actually had the rights to this thing. Because it was distributed through Paramount, but it was produced by Filmation. And so they had to sort that little mess out. And I think it was easier to say, don't pull anything from next gen, from an animated series. Don't refer to anything. There's a couple of points in there that, like Captain April's first captain of the Enterprise, and Spock, and his childhood. But otherwise, don't go near it. And rather than go to big long explanation of why we can't go near it and admit that there was a part of Star Trek that he didn't have control over, he'd just say, I don't want it. I don't want it anymore. Because he would do that sort of thing. He would just sort of blow it off and just give some excuse of, I just don't like it anymore. Which is bull, because Bijo met with him many times, and at no time did he ever say he didn't like the animated anymore, and any future editions of Concordance take the animated series out. He had a copy of the Concordance on his desk as reference. So yeah, and now as far as his underlings go, mainly Richard Arnold, and so whenever I guess they didn't ask any questions about why isn't the animated series in, no, I just don't like it anymore. Change it. Because he wasn't one for long explanations. He just wanted his way and wanted everyone to, just leave him the hell alone. So basically, but the most telling thing is what happened afterward. Later on, after the whole thing is settled, and basically Paramount gets the animated series back under their wing. And you can tell because, well, it was really CBS, but because when the DVD set came out, and there are many DVD sets of various Filmation shows, most of them are under the Filmation label. Star Trek is put out by CBS Home Video. And also, after about 91 or so, when this thing is finally resolved, suddenly animated references start cropping up in the shows. You see references in Deep Space Nine and Enterprise. I don't know I forget if there's anything in Voyager, but yeah, that's when, and it really starts showing up, the further in you go, and they realized it was okay. And like David Gerald said on one of the extras on it has Roddenberry's name on it. It's called Star Trek. It has the original cast. It has all the original writers. It's Star Trek. It is canon. So let's get over this thing and say, it's not. Yes, it is. It is. It's settled. It's canon. That's why it's going in the Concordance. It will continue to be it's always been the Concordance. It's basically Star Trek's fourth season. There's only 6 episodes in the second season, so you can't really say fourth and fifth. So put it together, 22 episodes. It's the fourth season, and we'll just leave the 5th episode. Maybe one day we'll incorporate Star Trek Continues as the 5th season. That'll be wrapping up. But that's pretty much it. Alright, as always, hopefully so we can avoid any more days like this past week where we're stranded in the parking lot because we had no gas to go anywhere. Patreon down below, PayPal down below, Cafe Press down, so you can buy nice little shirts like this one, where you can tell Alec Peters where he can stick it.
Alec Peters can stick it up his butt.
Well, anyway. Well, don't get too far, he's a lawyer. So. But really. And we'll get to you later.